The scripture this morning comes from Luke chapter 1, verses 26 to 38. This is the NRSV version. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary. And he came to her and said, "Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was much perplexed by his words and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. The angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And now you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you will name him Jesus." After hearing the first part of that sentence, I'm not sure I ever would have remembered the naming him Jesus part, right? "He will be great, and he will be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give to him the throne of his ancestor David. He will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end." Wow. Mary said to the angel, she's so practical. I mean, I would have been a bit overwhelmed at this point just with the vastness of the promise. And she's like, how can this be? She's so practical. Since I am a virgin, how can this be? The angel said to her, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore, the child to be born will be holy. He will be called Son of God. Wow. And now your relative Elizabeth in her old age has also conceived a son, and this in the 6th month, for her who was said to be barren. For nothing will be impossible with God." Then Mary said, Here am I, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." Then the angel departed from her. What a story. What an amazing story. I mean, this girl, Mary, was probably young. She was probably, in her early teens. People got married at a much earlier age, generally, at that time. You can just see the headline in the Nazareth Times, "Angel appears to young girl." And for a quick summary of what the angel says, right? "You are favored. The Lord is with you. Do not be afraid. You will conceive in your womb and bear a son. Name him Jesus, and he's going to be king forever." Naturally confused, Mary says, "How can this be, since I'm a virgin?" Well, in a clear answer, the angel says, "Well, the Holy Spirit's going to come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you," whatever that means. The father of the baby, what the angel's saying, is the father of the baby will be God. And then he says, nothing is impossible with God. That's the great hope, right? That's standing right in the middle of this baffling set of sentences. And to all this, I mean, really, at this point, wouldn't you be thinking about heading for the door? And in the midst of this, Mary says, "Here am I, the Lord's servant. As you have said, let it be done to me." That's the way the Voice version puts it. I really like that line, the way they put it. "As you have said, let it be done to me," because I think that is such a clear response. And as wild as it is to see Mary's faithful response to such a strange request, it only gets more difficult for her as she has to live this out for 30 plus years of her son's life. And what I would like to focus on today are the many encounters Mary had with her son, or at least highlighting a few of them in particular, and how her faithfulness to do God's will laid an unbearably heavy weight upon her. And how this is the nature of God's promises for all of us. I want you to keep that in mind. This is the nature of God's promises for all of us. They are always good, but they are fraught with mystery and difficulty. When we're in the will of God, it doesn't mean that all things are shiny and happy, right? There are things that come along with that. And so here's the troubles. Mary's troubles began soon after, both physical and emotional. Theologian Jonathan Pools puts it this way: Mary's body is about to become part of the divine plan, and it will also become the subject of gossip, religious judgment, and even conflict. And it will also become the place where God will be nourished and will grow. In receiving this invitation, Mary gives up her life, losing it for the sake of Christ. And of course, in our own mind, if you're thinking about the things Jesus said later in his ministry, of course, he says this for all disciples, right? Lay down your life, right? Give up, take up my cross and follow me. For anyone who wants to gain his life will lose it, but he who loses his life for my sake will gain it, right? So right here, at the very crux of the beginning of this story of Jesus, that's already being required. So Mary's first encounter with Jesus, literally, he's not even in her womb yet, but it's happening, right? Leads to great tribulation in her life. The verse just after the verses we read today, verse 39 and 40 says this: In those days Mary set out and went with haste to a Judean town in the hill country, where she entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth, right? This is mentioned right at the end, that Elizabeth was having a baby too. And so she gets out of there, man. I mean, she's not staying in Nazareth. It's too hard. She's now a teenage, unwed, pregnant girl. And so she's on the run. I mean, this is the way it begins. Now remember what the first line of the scripture was, right? The Lord's favor is upon you. And it is. But I think, don't you want to frame that differently? Do you want to be like, wait. If the Lord's favor is upon me, shouldn't that guarantee me just a couple of things? Like, a long life, or that no matter what happens, right, that no one's going to get hurt. Very reasonable things, right? But from the very beginning, things are really hard for Mary. So, to me, it's all about discombobulation. Don't you love that word? It just feels discombobulated, doesn't it, to say it, right? So to confuse, or to disconcert, or to upset, or to frustrate. From the gospel accounts, we know that many encounters with Jesus that Mary had created confusion, as well as upset and frustrated her. And I'm just going to go through a couple really quickly. The first, he's in the temple. He's 12 years old. He's hanging out with the teachers. They're halfway back home. You mamas out there, I just want you to think about that one for a minute. Of course, he's a tweener, right? He's right in between childhood and teenagedom. But in that moment, right, she felt lost from him for the first time, we think. Out of control, unable to do anything. Then in Mark 3, things must have been near an all-time low. For it says that his family came to take charge of him, for they said he is out of his mind. They think he's crazy. Right? Now I want you to just, in the back of Mary's mind, has to be this angelic visitation. Right? The Lord's favor is upon you. Great things are going to happen. He's going to rule. And she's like, he's crazy. He's not going to rule anybody, right? He's going to end up over there in the river. I mean, who knows, right? And so I think the fears and the uncertainty and the confusion and the frustration. And then, of course, all throughout the Gospels are sprinkled times when the Pharisees are trying to arrest Jesus. They're trying to kill Jesus. They're trying to undo him, right? To undo what he's doing. Mary had to have heard rumors or overheard the Pharisees saying such things to arrest him, to put him on trial, to even kill him. And then finally, the worst day of all, right? When Jesus is tried on trumped-up charges and convicted by a governor who knows he's innocent. Everything about Pontius Pilate, we seem to think Pilate knew that he was innocent. And I just wonder how Mary responded. And then I remembered that scene. I don't know if you remember it from the movie The Passion. There's this moment where Jesus is on the way to the cross. He's carrying the cross, and Mary has an interaction with him. Let's watch. Powerful scene, isn't it? You can almost get all the way back to the angelic pronunciation, can't you? I mean, she's thinking back to a time when she was more in control, when she could determine Jesus' destiny a little bit more. And at this moment, right at the end of the story, this most horrific moment, how in the world could she see what the angel promised coming true? Right? I mean, at this moment, who sees kingship? Who sees anything that looks like the promise that the angel made? In all of these confusing, disconcerting, and frightening moments, do you think Mary ever thought back, as I said, to today's encounter? As you have said, let it be done unto me. I believe in differing ways this same thing is true for any disciple of Jesus Christ. Here's another quote from the theologian Jonathan Pools. Like Mary, it is this invitation to have Christ be in and through us to which we all must respond. And we all must do so while knowing very little of what will come after and what impossibilities it might hold. For each and every one of us, the call to discipleship is a call fraught with mystery and difficulty. Jesus talks about this all throughout his ministry, but I think those of us who live in America where we are so used to being able to deny pain and suffering at every turn, I mean, do everything we can not to submit to suffering, that it's really hard for us to pay attention to those parts of the story, isn't it? What we hope for is that, if I'm in God's will, that everything's going to be okay and that all things will go well. I'll be taken care of. And you will be taken care of. But the world is a hard place. It's broken. It's filled with sin. Free will is in play. Things happen. Accidents. Evil. These are the things that are in our world. For some insight into this, I want to read 2 quotes from a New York Times article that ran this week, entitled, "After Great Pain, Where is God?" The author, Peter Weiner, writes this, that in the face of great pain, suffering, and grief, there is also, for me at least, consolation in the conviction that we are part of an unfolding drama with a purpose. At any particular moment in time, I may not have a clue as to what that precise purpose is. But I believe, as a matter of faith, that the story has an author. The difficult chapters need not be defining chapters, and that even the broken areas of our lives can be redeemed. See, isn't it interesting? I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't read this every day in newspapers, nationally published, right? I mean, this is a pretty interesting article. And what he's saying is so biblical. It embraces this story of Mary perfectly, right? That God's story will not, right, get stopped. The difficult chapters, though, also aren't the defining chapters. But then there's even more, and he says this next. He says, for those of the Christian faith, God is a God of wounds, where the road to redemption passes directly through suffering. There is some solace in knowing that while at times life is not easy for us, it was also hard for the God of the New Testament. And so in the face of the reality check of how difficult life can be even for the most faithful of God's children, we know that God, in Jesus Christ, endured more than he would ever ask Mary You see, Jesus, as a true leader, doesn't ask us to do anything that he is not willing to do even more of himself. Think about in the garden where he literally sweat blood. Everything is in question for him at that point. Then, of course, right to the betrayal by a good friend and the kiss and the arrest and then the trial and the beatings and the mocking and then a horrific punishment intended as a public spectacle. And then, if that were not enough, even more. My God, why have you forsaken me? But that's not the end of the story, is it? And so, Jesus' story ties all the way back in with Mary's story, which ties all the way back in eventually to our story, or forward to our story. Right? For with God, nothing shall be impossible. 3 days after this horrific, abusive, and heartless murder, God conquers the effects of the evil done to Jesus. Think about that, right? Governments and the church colluding to put an innocent man to death, evil, injustice. God answers that in the resurrection. He answers it by saying, you cannot act unjustly ultimately. And more, then he conquers our greatest enemy, death itself, when by God's power, God raises Jesus from the dead. And then you look at the impact of that Jesus' life and his death and his resurrection reunited a sinful, hurting, and broken people with their God. Right? So now you leap forward even more into the impact of the suffering and the pain. Have you ever seen a person, a Christian, a missionary, I would say the Pope, Francis is a good example, endure pain and suffering for the sake of those around them? That is the place where God seems to show up, just like here with Jesus and with Mary. And so our question as disciples is if we are not willing to suffer any pain or suffering for our faith, what is the kingdom missing? That's a hard question, isn't it? Because we don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But this story makes me think, it makes me hope, it makes me pray that this relationship that I now have with God, because of the suffering and pain of Jesus and his family, that I have a relationship with God, and that maybe if I step out, even if it causes some pain and suffering in my life, that others may see and experience the grace of God. For the grace we celebrate at this table today, our very salvation, our very ability to have an intimate and living relationship with our Creator, the very ability to experience life and freedom and to sacrificially love God and neighbor, all this is possible today because Mary said, as you have said, let it be done to me.